In our strategic plan, it talks about that we are a self-reliant, strong, and healthy nation. And so my job is to focus on providing programs for this, that work for the citizens that are made in Huu-ay-aht, that help us heal from the traumas that we have overcome from colonization.
So now that we're self-governing, now that we have control over our lands and resources, we're still faced with the innate scarcity of the world that we live in.
Our citizens actually developed 5 posts, which would help us kind of ascertain the direction of where we want to go for the government and how we want to go about developing programs to, say, bring people home, support the citizens. Large-scale industry will give us the ability to inject cash into the government to help develop these programs, which would, assist in development of language, supporting citizens in multiple different other ways. It wasn't a administration-led program. It was generally the citizens coming up with where they would like to see the government go.
Pre-treaty, we already had programs. They were just one-time funding and so couldn't continue. And these are Band-Aids, and so we need funding that's going to continue for these projects, focusing on offering supports in healing of whatever kind of healing. And a big part of that is the social services and bringing the kids home. We are definitely going to have to find a lot of money to tackle all of those projects.
In order for the Huu-ay-aht First Nation to successfully implement their strategic plan, we can't do it the way we're doing business right now. First of all, tourism is only a very, very small percentage of our total revenue, whereas right now forestry is probably anywhere from 60 to 75% of our revenue. And then if we went into LNG would just erase all that. It would probably be, on an annual basis, 3 times greater than the revenue we're taking in now. So that's why I look at LNG favorably in terms of the economics of it. It's revenue that we can take in, and it's revenue that can fund the initiatives that we want to undertake and do it much quicker. So that's the key. Like, we need to begin fishery enhancement now. It's something we can't wait 30 years from now. In terms of the financials, when I got into office, one of the first things I did do was do a financial assessment of the nation. I wanted a financial analysis to show, do we have the financial capability to keep doing what we're doing right now? And if we do, we'll stay on track. If we don't, then we got to do something. Well, the independent analysis came back and said, in 4 to 5 years, you're going to have a shortfall, unless you do something right now. So that was why I shifted gears and said, we got to look at LNG more seriously. We have to look at forestry a little more seriously. We have to look at diversifying our economy more seriously so we can generate more revenue. In a few years, we're not going to have the money to finance the projects that we have going right now.
When you develop, say, 1 house and 1 lot in a subdivision, you're looking at anywhere from $350,000 to $400,000. So it's fairly high cost. You get into a 100-lot subdivision, we're looking at $35 to $40 million. So it's not something that we can't do. It's just unless we're developing industry and getting other financial supports to do this, we're not able to kind of achieve those goals in the short term. So it would be a longer term goal that we would be aiming for to develop that type of structure. The industry would give us the opportunity to develop these things short term instead of elongated timelines to try to come up with funding to help facilitate these types of things.
It's uniquely important to achieving the 5 posts in our strategic plan. In order for us to be free of colonization, which is the first post, we need to ensure that we have the ability, the freedom, and the resources to ensure that we can make decisions that take us out of dependence and back into independence and back into interdependence with the world around us. So we are exploring an LNG export facility at Sarita Bay, which is on our treaty lands. We're doing it with a company by the name of Steelhead LNG, which is based out of Vancouver. We'll be taking gas from northeastern BC and Alberta and bringing it down to our location and turning it into liquefied LNG, where it will be loaded onto carriers and brought to places like Asia. The facility would be built at Sarita Bay, and it would operate for 25 years. The relationship with Steelhead LNG began as the exploration of just the idea. So we needed to have a good understanding of what it was that LNG was, what the industry looked like, and what that meant for our territory and our people. So the LNG Advisory Committee is a group that was created by the People's Assembly in 2014. It's a group of citizens to ensure that there's non-political oversight over the way that we investigate the project, to ensure that the project has been explored in a good way that meets with our vision and values.
Me being on the committee, I've been on the committee for just over a year, and it was Mr. Jack that had asked me to sit on the committee. You know, at the beginning I was skeptical, and for me the process has been professional and it's been very knowledgeable. With the information that was brought to the table when we did have our committee meetings and stuff, I've learned a lot and it's opened my eyes.
The Sarita LNG project is at the very early stages of development. The project design is not completed. It's still in the feasibility stage. And what's good about the agreement that's been negotiated between the Huu-ay-aht First Nation and Steelhead is that it provides the Huu-ay-aht people a voice early on in the process. Very early on, in fact, so that through the Project Oversight Board, which the nation has equal representation on with Steelhead, concerns can be raised and brought forward and be considered as the project is designed and environmental studies are developed.
Our intent is to make sure that the design from the outset is the best that it could possibly be to address the environmental concerns that we are bringing to the table and sharing with Steelhead, so that there won't be any surprises down the road, or there won't be any reasons to change the project radically because we weren't there having that conversation. Those conversations are happening, and that's the whole purpose of the Project Oversight Board and the Environmental Management Framework, is to ensure that those conversations are happening in a timely manner so that the results at the end of the day serve the interests of everyone.
What co-management does is it puts the First Nation in the driver's seat to make sure that the First Nation's interests, in this case Huu-ay-aht's interests, are fully met and protected in a way that results in true reconciliation. And true reconciliation means that there's free, prior, and informed consent of the elected and hereditary leadership and the citizens for the development, that there's full and fair compensation and accommodation, and finally that there's real co-management, not drive-by consultation. And you know, in my view, this is what Steelhead and Huu-ay-aht have achieved, true reconciliation. And so, unlike other projects, Huu-ay-aht will have the resources, the seat at the table, and the ability to make sure that this project achieves world leading, which means that we're going to use the best available technology, the best available environmental measures, the best possible approach to the design, construction, monitoring, and decommissioning of the project.
So we see already that there's just a natural push when you sign your treaty, that behind that is also investment needed in order to achieve the goals that we want to achieve. language and culture is always a priority. It's always up there at I would say the #1 spot. But in order to get to those places, there's other components to it in order to make that successful. One of that is revenues. Revenues is a very large source of how we get to the places that we want to go. And the way Huu-ay-aht sees is forestry is something that we can definitely utilize right now. We can reduce our dependency on forestry by developing other revenue streams in the kind of the short to mid-term. So that would be within tourism, that would be within developing infrastructure, building houses. When you build houses and you have more people living at home, you have more money going into the community. So that will just be a natural spill-off to all our businesses. This can be looked at the same way for LNG. If LNG comes in, there's the LNG facility itself, there's LNG, the business itself, but there's everything that we need to in order to get to constructing it, and there's everything that comes about when you start construction, and then there's the final piece when the LNG facility is going and there's job opportunity there. I see the LNG project as being an opportunity for us to make actual footsteps towards restoring a lot of Cleachan's traditional territory back to a place where there's a little bit more balance there between the land, the water, and the surrounding area.
The LNG Advisory Committee is a group that helps oversee the exploration of the LNG project, but it's not the only group that does that. We have a group of hereditary leaders who are very central to the exploration of the LNG project, because we have to do it in such a way that fits with our traditional culture and our traditional values.
So we have confidence that the agreement was structured in a really good, respectful way. And I always go back to the 3 principles that we've been using that have been guiding us through this whole process. And it's because of that why we have a good agreement. There was a time where we sat on the sidelines watching our traditional territory of mine be devastated and reaped of economic development and happening all around us, and we weren't getting any of it. So in our view, from the hereditary chief's point of view, it's been a respectful conversation leading up to this partnership.
In order to be self-reliant, we have to have the financial resources. If we don't have the financial resources, we will never be able to achieve true self-reliance, because we're in a modern world now. This is the modern world. This modern world's economy depends on finances, depends on money. So in order for us to do something, this is where LNG, it's a golden opportunity to change how we do things. We're changing from where we've been dependent on money from government, where now we'll be dependent on funds from economic development. The Huu-ay-aht can do what they want to do, not do what other governments want us to do.
This agreement will help us achieve where we want to land as a nation in terms of a healthy community, because we care about our citizens, we care about our people, we care about our environment, we care about our lands and resources, we care about the economy. It's going to provide a wealth, and it's going to provide jobs, and it's going to provide many opportunities for us to invest more into our citizens. We have a high-level plan, and part of that high-level plan was to bring people home, and this is an opportunity that's going to help us achieve that one step at a time.